I'm Dr. Edward Wu. Today I'm going to give you an introduction to my Yangton Yington theory. Before I start the introduction, I would like to show you my book, My Universe, A Theory of Yangton Yington Pairs, which contains a total of 17 science papers published in the last 4 years, from 2015 to 2019. A complete presentation and discussion of my Yangton Yington theory can be found in this book. It is now available on Amazon.com. In 2014, after early retirement, I watched the Science Channel almost every day. Some present discoveries in subatomic particles by Large Hadron Collider attract a lot of my attention. How could it be possible that the universe is formed by 2 dozens of little monsters, such as quarks, leptons, gluons, and bosons? I was so curious. Is it true that everything should start from a simple form before it becomes a complex form, or from a single subject to become a multiple one? If indeed this world started from a single element, then what it is and where it came from? It was all because of these questions I started my research on the creation and formation of the universe, and finally I came up with my Yangton and Yington theory. Although my Yangton and Yington theory is only a hypothetical theory, but it can be used to explain almost everything in the universe. It is the theory of everything. This diagram is a raw map of Yangton and Yington theory. I will follow this diagram to give an introduction. As you can see, for better presentation, different colors are used in different subjects. I will start our discussion from top to bottom and left to right with the following sequence: 5 principles, Wood's pairs, subatomic particles, graviton, boson, spacetime, redshift, Hubble's law, field equations, and quantum field theories. What is Yangton and Yington theory? Yangton and Yington is a pair of circulating antiparticles which forms the building blocks of the universe. It explains the formations of all matter and the correlations between space, time, energy, and matter. It is the God's particles. To keep it simple, I named the Yangton and Yington circulating pairs as Wood's pairs. It is my belief that the universe was created based on the 5 principles of the universe. What are those 5 principles? Now let's start from the first principle. First principle, there was nothing in the universe in the beginning. If there's something, for example, particle X, existed in the beginning, and then people will ask, what is there before particle X? It soon becomes an endless argument. Therefore, logically, the only possible answer is there was nothing, because before nothing, there was still nothing. Second principle, from nothing to something, it must be a reversible process, because we believe that the universe will eventually end up with nothing, which is the fifth principle. Therefore, instead of creating a new process, the easiest way to go back to nothing is to make the original process a reversible process. Third principle, the something must be a pair of antimatter particles with an inner attractive force, such that they can attract and destroy each other. How could something go back to nothing? The only logical answer is that something is composed of pairs of antimatter particles, and also there must be an attractive force in between the 2 antiparticles, so as to ensure that these antiparticles will destroy each other. Fourth principle, from something to permanent matter, there must be an external energy to cause a constant circulation motion between the two antimatter particles so as to avoid them from recombination and destruction. To prevent the two antiparticles from destroying each other, an external force must be applied to create a centrifugal force to balance the attractive force such that a circulation motion between the two antiparticles can be generated, and a permanent Wolf's pair can thus be formed. Fifth principle. Eventually, the whole universe will end and go back to nothing. Just like the first principle, if the universe will be ended with particle Y, then people will ask, what is there after particle Y? Therefore, the only logical answer is that the universe should be ended with nothing. The universe will be ended in either one of the following two ways. First, black holes. In the black hole, the circulation of Yangton Yington Theory is distorted by the massive gravitational force, followed by the recombination and the destruction of Yangton and Yington pairs. Second, aging of the universe. After trillions of years, due to the shrinkage of Yangton and Yington pairs, recombination and the destruction between the Yangton and Yington pair will occur. This is the picture of a black hole. It is a graveyard of Wolf's pairs. According to the five principles, it is obvious that the Yangton and Yington circulating pairs, Wolf's pairs, with an inter-attractive force of creation, are required to prevent self-destruction and such that a building block can be formed permanently to make the whole universe. Now let's see how the subatomic particles can be formed by Wolf's pairs. When two Wolf's pairs come together, they stack up to each other by aligning the Yangton of one Wolf's pair to the Yington of the other Wolf's pair, with a string force generated between the two adjacent Wolf's pairs. As a result, a string structure can be formed by Wolf's pairs. This is in correspondence with string theory. A variety of string structures, including linear, ring, sphere, and tetrahedral structures, can be produced to represent a variety of subatomic particles such as graviton, neutron, electron, proton, and dark matter. This is the hypothetical structure of electron and positron based on Wolf's pairs. This is a hypothetical structure of neutron. It looks like a donut. This diagram shows the weak force between neutron and the positron, and also strong force between neutron and the proton. Subject to the subatomic structures, four basic forces can be induced between two adjacent string structures. This is in accordance to unified field theory. A more detailed discussion of subatomic particles based on the string structures and the four basic forces can be found in my papers and book. Now let's take a look at graviton and its related phenomena, such as Newton's law of universal gravitation, gravitational field, field equation, and the gravitational wave. Graviton has a linear structure. When two gravitons come together, either end to end or side by side, attractive force can be generated at the contact area. This is called gravitational force. Like photon, Gravitons can be emitted from the surface of the substance by thermal energy, which is called graviton radiation. When those emitted gravitons hit the gravitons on the surface of the target, they make contact interaction, which generates an attractive force, universal gravitation. This is called graviton radiation and the contact interaction theory. This is Newton's law of universal gravitation. It can be easily derived from the graviton radiation and the contact interaction theory. F equal to gm1 times m2 divided by r squared, where the gravitational force is proportional to the masses of the parent object and the target object, and the reverse square of the distance between two objects. The gravitational field is defined as the total gravitational force applied on a unit mass, 1 kilogram, in the space, which can be represented as Fg equals to g times summation of m over r squared. Since the concentration of the particle radiation from an object is also proportional to m over r squared, therefore gravitational field can also be considered as a distribution of the concentration of graviton radiation and contact interaction on a unit mass, 1 kilogram. Based on particle radiation and contact interaction theory, gravitational force is delivered via particle radiation rather than wave propagation. Therefore, instead of the wave form, gravitational waves are actually the fluctuation of the total gravitational forces carried by graviton radiation generated from two merging black holes. This picture shows a similar effect in brightness caused by two stars. According to Newton's second law of motion, F equals to ma, and Newton's law of universal gravitation, F equals to mfg equals to mg summation m over r squared. Therefore, A equals to g summation m over r squared. This is called field equation. It combines both space and time with matter. We will discuss Einstein's field equation and Wood's space-time field equation after the introduction of space-time and related theories. Now let's switch to photon. Photon is a free Wood pair released from the parent substance. We are going to discuss light speed, photon energy, and the wavelength, respectively. Region of object is the image of an object observed at a reference point. This diagram shows the image of the object and the positions of the observer at the reference point in 3 different time frames. This slide shows the image of the same object and the positions of the origin observed by the observer, which is now the new reference point. A more detailed discussion of theory of region and the conversion of reference points can be found in my paper and the book. Light speed is measured at the reference point, and the reference point is a fixed point. It doesn't move. Light speed is region of light divided by photon traveling time, measured at the reference point. And the traveling time is independent to the reference point. In this diagram, light speed at origin equals to OP black line divided by delta T equals to CO. Light speed at Earth equals to B BP red line over delta t equals to CE. And the light speed at the light source equals to Cp green line over delta t equals to Cs, which is a 3 times 10 to the 8 meter per second. That's the absolute light speed. CO is not equal to CE and it's not equal to Cs. In other words, the speed of light is subject to the relative position and the speed between the observers and the photon. Photon emission involves two-stage processes. First stage is the separation process of the photon from its parent substance. The separation force is equal to the string force. Second stage is the ejection process of the photon from its parent substance. The eject force is equal to the repulsive forces between two yangtons and the two yingtons of the adjacent Wolf's pairs on the surface of the substance. Photon emission process is an inertial transformation process. Photon moves in two different directions: absolute light speed in the ejection direction and inner light speed in the light source moving direction. This slide shows the equation of light speed. Region of light at reference equals to region of light at light source plus region of light source at reference. OP vector equals to SP vector plus OS vector. Light speed at reference equals to absolute light speed, which is 3 times 10 to the 8 meter per second at the light source, plus light source speed at reference. C vector equals to CS vector plus BS vector. A more detailed discussion of light speeds can be found in my paper and the book. Now let's take a look at Einstein's special relativity. According to Yangton and Yington theory, light speed is subject to the relative moving speed and direction between the light source and the observer. This opposes to Einstein's postulation that light speed is always a constant, no matter the light source and the observer. As a result, both special relativity and time-velocity relation are incorrect, and time doesn't change with velocity at all. How about Einstein's mass and energy conservation? E equal to mc squared. Is it true? Because photon is a free Wolf's pair traveling in space, it is assumed that during the explosion, a group of subatomic particles with mass m were first escaped into the space having kinetic energy 1/2 mc squared at the light speed 3 times 10 to the 8 meter per second. And subsequently, Wolf's pairs were separated from the subatomic particles to form photons. Since all Wolf's pairs become photons, the amount of Wolf's pairs remains unchanged during the explosion. Therefore, E equal to mc squared has nothing to do with the transformation between mass and energy. In fact, it is the energy conversion from subatomic particle structure energy generated from string force and four basic forces to photons' kinetic energy. Now let's focus on photons' wavelength, acceleration Doppler effect, and the Doppler ratio. When a wave travels toward the observer, its wavelength decreases and the frequency increases, or the other way around. When a wave moves away from the observer, its wavelength increases and the frequency decreases. This is called Doppler effect, because Paulon goes through a long inertial transformation. Doppler effect can be found in the audio source at a constant speed, either approaching to or departing from the observer. However, photon is different. It has inertial transformation. Doppler effect can only be found in a star at an acceleration speed, either approaching to or departing from the observer. This is called acceleration Doppler effect. When a star moves away from Earth at an acceleration speed, its spectrum moves toward the red band. This is called Doppler redshift. Doppler redshift can prove Hubble's law. We will discuss it later. Now let's change our topic to mass, time, and space. There are two types of quantities, natural quantity and measured quantity. Natural quantity has no amount and unit, and natural quantity doesn't change. For example, mass as m, time as t, length as l, velocity as L over t. Measured quantity is equal to amount of unit times unit. For example, m times kilogram, t times second, L times meter, v times meter over second. For corresponding identical objects and events, their measured quantities have the same amount of the corresponding identical units. For example, 6 Earth feet and 6 Mars feet, they both have amount 6. 10 Earth hours and 10 Mars hours, they both have amount 10. Since Wood's pairs are the building blocks of the universe, it can be used as the basic units. For example, Wood's unit mass, which is a Wood's pair, abbreviated as MYY. Wood's unit time, which is a period, abbreviated as TYY. And the Wood's unit length, which is diameter, abbreviated as LYY. Wood's unit velocity is diameter over period, abbreviated as LYY over TYY. When the same object or event takes place or moves to a different location under an equilibrium condition, the appearance of the object and the duration of the event will change with the gravitational force and the aging of the universe, but not the structure of the object and the time sequence of the event. This object is called corresponding identical object, and event is called corresponding identical event. Corresponding identical object lacks a stretched rope of rubber bands. The amount of rubber bands is the same, but the length of each rubber band and the total length of the rubber band could be different, subject to the gravitational force and the aging of the universe. Corresponding identical event, on the other hand, lacks a motion picture, where each picture runs at a corresponding identical unit time. The amount of the picture's frame is the same, but the duration of each picture frame and the total playing time could be different, subject to the gravitational force and the aging of the universe. Principle of correspondence can be explained as follows. Capital S equal to small x times u. Capital S is corresponding identical quantity. Small x is the amount of corresponding identical unit, which is constant. And u is corresponding identical unit. Each quantity of the corresponding identical object and event should have a constant amount of the corresponding identical unit, no matter the gravitational field and the aging of the universe. This is named principle of correspondence. Because of the correspondence, All physical laws maintain unchanged in an inertial system, constant speed, of constant gravitational field and the aging of the universe. This is called law of inertia. A Cartesian coordinate system can be represented by x, y, z, t, L1, T1, which contains three perpendicular axes at their reference point, origin, four coordinates x, y, z, t, in which x, y, z are lengths and t is time. L1 is the unit length, such as centimeter, and T1 is the unit time, such as second. L1 and T1 are independent to each other. Whose spacetime is a special Cartesian coordinate system. X, Y, Z, T, L, Y, Y, T, Y, Y. L, Y, Y is whose unit length, and T, Y, Y is whose unit time at the reference point. L, Y, Y and T, Y, Y are dependent to each other by Woods spacetime theory. T, Y, Y equals to gamma L, Y, Y 3/2. Einstein's spacetime is a special Woods spacetime S, Y, Z, T, L, Y, Y 0, T, Y, Y 0. L, Y, Y 0 is the Woods unit length, and T, Y, Y 0 is the Woods unit time on Earth. In comparison, for a corresponding identical event and object, because of the uniformity of Woods unit length and Woods unit time in Woods spacetime, the coordinates of the event and object remain unchanged, no matter the gravitational field and the aging of the universe. However, in Einstein's spacetime, because of the long uniformity of Woods unit time and Woods unit length, the coordinates are dependent on the local gravitational field and the aging of the universe, even though the Woods unit length and the Woods unit time at the remote reference point, Earth, are maintained constant. Figure I shows A, which is a matrix in Woods spacetime x, y, z, t, l, y, y, t, y, y. L, y, y and t, y, y are uniform in the whole picture. And the B, a matrix with a massive star in Einstein's spacetime x, y, z, t, l, y, y 0, and t, y, y 0. You can see at the center, close to the star, which has a very big L, y, y, and t, y, y. That's why the matrix is distributed unevenly. This is Woods spacetime theory. Tyy equal to gamma Lyy 3/2, where Tyy is the period of Woods pair, Woods unit time, and Lyy is the diameter of Woods pair, Woods unit length, and gamma is Woods spacetime constant. A detailed mathematical derivation can be found in my paper and book. Because capital V equals to small v, m n minus 1, gamma minus 1, Lyy minus 1/2, where capital V is the velocity, small v is the amount of normal unit velocity, gamma is the Woods spacetime constant, m is the constant of the normal unit length, n is the constant of the normal unit time, and Lyy is Woods unit length. For corresponding identical motion, the amount of normal unit velocity, small v, is a constant. Therefore, the velocity, capital V, is proportional to Lyy minus 1/2. Since the separation of photons from substance is a process of corresponding identical motion of photons, the amount of absolute light speed 3 times 10 to the 8 is a constant. Therefore, the absolute light speed c is also proportional to Lyy minus 1 over 2. As a result, for a corresponding identical motion at a high gravitational field or in ancient universe, because the size L by y of Wood's pair is bigger, therefore the velocity of the motion is slower. Accordingly, absolute light speed c, capital C, is also slower. A detailed mathematical derivation can also be found in my paper and the book. For a photon, mu is proportional to Lyy minus 3 over 2. C is proportional to Lyy minus 1 over 2. And the lambda is proportional to Lyy. A photon can be considered as a marker of the spacetime of the light source. The photon frequency, light speed, and the wavelength carries the information of Lyy and Tyy of the spacetime of the light source deep into the universe. In other words, the photon bears the DNA of the light source. Now let's focus on the cosmological redshift and the gravitational redshift. When the universe was young, both Wood's unit length, Lyy equals to 2r, and the Wood's unit time, Tyy equals to capital T, the period, were bigger, which means the length was longer, time ran slower, and the velocity was slower compared to that on Earth today. As a result, light coming from a star greater than 5 billion years ago, 5 billion light years away, travels at a lower speed with lower frequency and a longer wavelength. This phenomenon is known as cosmological redshift. When the gravitational field increases, both Wood's unit length, Lyy equal to 2r, and the Wood's unit time, Tyy equals to capital T, the period, become greater, means time runs more slowly, length is longer, and the velocity is slower compared to that on Earth. As a result, light comes from a large gravitational field traveling at a lower speed with a lower frequency and a larger wavelength. This phenomenon is known as gravitational redshift. Hubble's law can be represented as follows. For stars more than 5 billion light years away, d is proportional to lambda 1 minus lambda over lambda. Also, v is proportional to lambda 1 minus lambda over lambda. Therefore, v is equal to h0 times d, where the velocity of the star v is proportional to the distance of the star d, and h0 is Hubble's constant, which is a function of time. Also, lambda 1 is the wavelength of the photon emitted from the star 5 billion light years away. Lambda is the wavelength of the photon generated from the present Earth. Lambda 1 minus lambda over lambda is defined as redshift. When a star moves away from Earth with an acceleration speed, Doppler redshift can be found in the spectrum. For the stars 5 billion light years away, Hubble's law can be derived mathematically from Doppler redshift. However, the energy needed to accelerate the stars remains a mystery. That is why it is called dark energy. A mathematical derivation of Hubble's law by Doppler redshift can be found in my paper and the book. Also, cosmological redshift can be found in the spectrum of a star due to the shrinkage of Wood's spacetime caused by the aging of the universe. For the stars 5 billion light years away, Wood's spacetime shrinkage, or in other words, reverse expansion theory, can be derived mathematically to prove Hubble's law. There is no need of dark energy because the potential energy of the circulating Wood's pair can be automatically converted to the kinetic energy during the shrinkage process. A mathematical derivation of Hubble's law by cosmological redshift can also be found in my paper and book. Hubble's law can be interpreted by either one of the following two theories. First, universe expansion and acceleration theory resulted from acceleration Doppler effect with dark energy. Second, Wood's spacetime shrinkage, in other words, reverse expansion theory caused by the shrinkage of Wood's pair due to the aging of the universe without dark energy. Which one is more truthful? Universe expansion or spacetime shrinkage? My answer is spacetime shrinkage, simply because there is no need of dark energy. This is Einstein's field equation, where on the left-hand side we have curvature tensor, metric tensor, and the cosmological constant, which are related to the curvature of the spacetime. On the right-hand side, we have stress energy tensor, which is related to matter. Also, it has gravitational constant G and the absolute light speed c on the right-hand side. We can derive a similar equation by Yangton and Yington theory in the next slide. A is equal to Gm over r squared. The first formula on the top is a conventional field equation. The next three formulas is developed from Yangton and Yington theory based on Lyy, Wood's unit length. From those four formulas, we can derive Wood's spacetime field equations, in which A is proportional to Lyy squared, and also A is proportional to C minus 4. Those are based on the reference point on the Lyy. Einstein's field equations, however, is a special case of Wood's spacetime field equation, which is based on Earth. So that's why A0 is proportional to Lyy0 squared. A0 is also proportional to C0 minus 4. If you compare this Einstein's field equation, which is derived from Wood's spacetime field equation, you can see it is very similar to Einstein's field equation, in which you have both C0 minus 4 and the G on the right hand side, and also the A0, which is the curvature on the left hand side. According to Yangton and Yington theory, Wood's unit length Lyy on a massive star is much bigger than Lyy0 on Earth, because A is proportional to C minus 4 is proportional to Lyy squared. Therefore, the acceleration A measured on the star is much bigger than A0 measured on Earth. In other words, for a massive star, Wood's spacetime field equation measured on the star has steeper slope, bigger curvature than that of Einstein's field equation measured on Earth. This picture shows the image of Wood's spacetime field equation affected by Earth's gravity. In general, Wood's pairs and Yangton and Yington theory provide a particle model and a physical picture for the interpretation of quantum field theory, quantum gravity theory, and unified field theory. Point particle and particle radiation and contact interaction can be used to explain quantum field theory. String particle and particle radiation and contact interaction can be used to explain quantum gravity theory and the unified field theory. This concludes the introduction of my Yangton Yington theory. For more detailed information, please check my book on Amazon.com. Thank you very much.